Hi there, this is Eshu. I'm the abbot here at Zenwest Buddhist Society. This Living Zen-podcast is just one of the many resources we've created at Zenwest to make Zen practice and training more available and accessible to people all over the world. Instructional videos, printable resources, and much, much more are also available on our website at www.zenwest.ca. If you're a regular listener, I'd love to hear from you. So please drop me an email at office@zenwest.ca and let me know who you are, how you got started, and what brought you to Zen. Everything we make available in person and online at Zenwest is only possible because of the support of our members and associates, people like you. If the efforts of our community are making a difference in your life, I'd like to invite you to show your support and take part in making it happen by becoming an associate or member of the Zenwest Sangha. You can do this by clicking the Join Us tab on our website at www.zenwest.ca. Thank you for your support, and thanks for listening. So today is October 6th, and yesterday was October 5th. That's how it works, I hear. In our tradition in the Zen school, October 5th is the memorial of the ancestor Bodhidharma's death memorial. Bodhidharma is a pivotal character in the history, the arising of Zen. In fact, he's called the first ancestor. There is this sort of pointed transition between Buddhism as it has been practiced before Bodhidharma and what happens after Bodhidharma. So to sort of honor this, I switched out the Dharma wheel for our old picture of Bodhidharma, which was painted by Shinzan Miyame Roshi. Although I always call him the Simpsons Bodhidharma because he kind of looks like a character from The Simpsons. But be that as it may. The Bodhidharma Day has significance teaching-wise. It also has significance in the sort of cycle of practice in the traditional training model. Bodhidharma Day is the sort of day which monks would traditionally switch out their summer robe, and they would wash it and fold it and put it away and don the winter robe. We're heading into the winter term. Traditionally, this term is one where we go from a period of maybe travel or pilgrimage, a time of going out into the villages, spreading the Dharma, so to speak, into a time where the weather starts to get a little worse and where the communities of practitioners would usually sort of like circle the wagons and dig in for an intensification of practice. This summer has been one of, I think, unusual diffuseness, I would say. September has been one of the busiest months for me this year that I've had in many, many, many years. Lots of activity, lots of things going on, lots of guests coming in, lots of different teachers and practitioners, a lot of confusion. And it shows where the gaps in our own practice are, the gaps in our own clarity in our form and practice. So I just want to take this opportunity to remind us that we have a form, and that we, just because the teacher's not looking, or just because things have been diffuse, that responsibility that we have, whether it's the responsibilities of the shojis or the jikis, the responsibility is fundamentally ours. Our practice is ours. And how we engage with this form and with this practice, how it impacts our life. The responsibility for that is ours. So when we know what the form is, and we choose not to engage with it, or we choose to just brush it aside because it's inconvenient or uncomfortable, the responsibility is ours. The consequences, likewise, are also ours. Today I wanted to talk, it's unusual for these Sangha Sundays, but because it's Bodhidharma Day, partly this is my first opportunity to give a talk now as a formally recognized Osho in my own Zendo, in our home Zendo here, because it's the day after Darumaki, Bodhidharma Day. I wanted to talk about Bodhidharma because I feel like the Sunday schedule, the sort of what I would call the sort of deep practice, has been really scattered and kind of ramshackle this summer. Not by anyone's fault. There's just been a lot going on, and I miss it dearly. I miss it because the Tuesday evenings are an opportunity for us to share this practice with people, to share this with people who are coming for their first time or their first few times, and who are interested in investigating this great matter. But as a matter of course, to speak to people who don't have a depth of practice, it is necessary for me to sort of describe the landscape, describe the geography, just cut across the surface, to describe a country in terms of sort of mountains and rivers, but not to cut deeply into what that country is about. And so I feel like I've been talking a fair bit this summer. I've been engaging with people in practice a fair bit this summer, but I haven't had the opportunity to really go deep. And when we talk about Bodhidharma, the first story that comes up is this meeting of two aspects of practice, the relative and the absolute, the subjective and the absolute, and how easy it is for us to get lost in our thinking about ourselves, thinking about the benefits of practice, the merit of practice, and forgetting the deep root out of which this practice arises. On Tuesday evenings, it's often the case that when we go around the circle, and it's natural, that the cases we talk about how practice has benefited us, the ways that it has changed our relationships, the ways that it has changed our abilities, whether it's to sleep or to have willpower, or whether it's to deal with difficult people. And all of these things are real in a sense. All of these things are valid and valuable in a sense. But from the perspective of Bodhidharma's teaching, from the perspective of our school of Zen, these things are secondary. They're like side effects. They're wonderful side effects. But they are secondary to the exposure to what lies beyond subjectivity, to what lies beyond our I am self. These things are secondary to the vastness of being immersed in our true nature, our origin. So I'm going to take up this first case of the Hekigan Roku, the Blue Cliff Record, which is a collection of koans which predates the Mumonkan, or the Gateless Barrier. This was the original collection of koans and was actually compiled by one of our ancestors that we chant in our ancestral chant. I'm just going to read the whole thing. This may seem strange to those of you who haven't investigated koans or looked at koans before, but the first case of the Hekigan Roku is about as good as introduction as anything is going to be. So, Engo's introduction, case 1. Emperor Wu asks Bodhidharma. Smoke over the hill indicates fire. Horns over the fence indicate an ox. Given one corner, you grasp the other 3. One glance and you discern the smallest difference. Such quickness, however, is only too common among robed monks. When you have stopped the deluded activity of consciousness, then, whatever situation you may find yourself in, you enjoy perfect freedom, in adversity and prosperity, in taking and giving. Now tell me, how in fact will this sort of person behave? See Secho's complications. Okay, so we come to the main case. Emperor Wu of Liang asked Bodhidharma, what is the first principle of the holy teachings? Bodhidharma said, emptiness, no holiness. Who is this standing before me? No knowing. The emperor did not grasp his meaning. Thereupon Bodhidharma crossed the river and went to the land of Wei. The emperor later spoke of this to Shiko, who said, do you in fact know who this person is? The emperor said, no knowing. Shiko said, this is the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, the bearer of the Buddha's heart seal. The emperor was full of regret and wanted to send for Bodhidharma, but Shiko said, it is no good sending a messenger to fetch him back. Even if all the people went, he would not turn back. So this koan is supposedly a sort of semi-accurate reporting of an interaction that took place between Emperor Wu of Liang and this ancestor named Bodhidharma. Emperor Wu of Liang had been a general, a very powerful general, and had managed to sort of overtake a previous emperor. And having done so, he began to become a great patron of Buddhism. He modeled himself, or he took himself to be kind of another incarnation of a famous Buddhist emperor named Ashoka in India. And Ashoka was this person who conquered massive parts of India, and having done so, realized the brutality of his ways and began to transform the landscape into an educational, medical, scientific sort of renaissance in Buddhism. He began to finance monasteries and universities and send emissaries from India, northern India, to places like Sri Lanka and Thailand. And the schools of Buddhism that they have in Sri Lanka and Thailand are direct results of the emissaries, sometimes sons and daughters and relatives of Ashoka himself, sending these people with massive amounts of texts to these foreign lands to expose them to Buddhism. And Emperor Wu took himself to be a character just like this. And there's some great stories about him. He was kind of an interesting guy. He funded innumerable monasteries. He funded universities for scholastic learning. He wanted to be a monk, and sometimes was a monk, quote unquote, himself. The story goes that he built this fantastic monastery right across from the palace where he, lived and worked. And when things were in a particularly stable period, he would sort of semi-renounce his throne, go across the road, and become a monk for a while. And then trouble in the northern provinces would fire up, and he would have the palace basically ransom him back from the monastery, so then he would go back across the road again and put on sit on the throne and tell people what to do. Buddhism had established itself very well. It had been in China now for 200 or 300 years. There were monasteries, there were universities, there were all kinds of cultural things that were associated with Buddhism. But at that time, it was a Buddhism that was largely concerned with the acquisition of merit, one could say. The idea prevalent in Buddhism to that time was that to become a Buddha, you sort of engaged in this process of purification. Purification through deeds and actions that would improve your karmic situation through merit, to the point where you were virtually sort of burdenless. You didn't have a karmic burden. And in that position, you could become awakened, enlightened, and attain Buddhahood. So Bodhidharma, when he arrived in China, this patch-robed, bearded barbarian, they call him a barbarian because the Chinese at the time, and I think still to this day somewhat, regard everyone who's not from China as kind of barbaric, uncivilized. And Bodhidharma was a sort of southern Indian and had a beard, but he was respected or viewed as a patriarch, an ancestor, a transmitted bodhisattva. So the ancestor, or the emperor, had a bunch of people sort of round this guy up and bring him to the palace because he wanted to check him out. And really, he wanted to find out about his own practice. This is very common, actually. Many people contact the Zen center or come to practice or come to speak to a teacher because they want some kind of judgment on their insight or judgment on their practice. They want the teacher, this person, this authority, to sort of say, yes, you've got it now. When we used to live in Victoria, sometimes I would come home to find people sitting in the zendo outside waiting for the master to come and sort of approve of their enlightenment. Sometimes this involved backpacks full of sketch pads with masterful plans and enumerations on the universe's functionings. So Bodhidharma arrived at the emperor's palace, and the emperor begins listing all of the things that he's done, all of the temples that he's built, and all the monks that he sustains, and all the sutras that he's translated and transcribed and sent off with missionaries. And he asked Bodhidharma, apparently, I've done all of this stuff. How much merit? Like, what's the tally sheet? How am I doing, coach? And Bodhidharma says, none. No merit whatsoever. And so, right away we find that we're talking about two things. We're coming from two different directions. As an old teacher that I met early in my practice, the metaphor she used was, we're looking in two ends of the telescope. Bodhidharma is teaching this Zen school. The way that he talked about Zen was this transmission that was outside of words and letters. It has nothing to do with selves or objects or things or merit or accomplishment or achievement. It is this direct pointing to what underlies everything, what we call Buddha nature in Zen, our original home. If you sort of have a theistic bent, I guess, we might say this is the God nature. something which is beyond subject and object. So we can talk about how practice has benefited us and the things that we're able to do better because of our practice. And that's to some degree true. And to some degree, there is a benefit or a merit to what the emperor has done. But from the absolute perspective, from the perspective of Bodhidharma, from the perspective of the Zen school, we're just talking about chop. And our focus here, our fundamental concern, is on the depths. So we can talk, when we look at the ocean, about big waves and little waves, about tidal changes and all this kind of stuff, foam and whirlpools and trash in the ocean and all that kind of stuff. But when we step back and back and back, we see that the nature of the ocean is water, this bottomless depth. And this is the thing that Bodhidharma keeps pointing to over and over and over again. And we can't grasp this, we can't point to it, we can't summarize this in words. We can only sort of open up this spaciousness, this opportunity for ourselves and for those who practice with us, for those around us, to grasp it or to dive in themselves. And so Bodhidharma throws out the first. So it reminds me of the image that comes to mind is the Bugs Bunny, when he takes out the sort of portable hole thing, whoosh, throws out the first one in front of the emperor. The emperor says, "How much merit have I attained by doing all of these acts?" Bodhidharma says, "None whatsoever." Pulls the carpet out from old Emperor Wu. Now there's a whole bunch of stuff going on that I don't have time to talk about today. You don't talk to an emperor like this usually, I would say. So we'll talk about that another time. So the emperor, very confused at this point, I'm imagining, because he's been practicing capital B Buddhism. Feed the monks, build the temples, do good acts. You'll be reborn positively. If you're a woman, you'll be born a man. Oh, thank goodness, because then you can be enlightened. If you're a lay person and you have a family, well, you'll be born into a circumstance where you can actually be free of these burdens and be able to become a shave-headed monk and become enlightened, because really that's the only way to do it. And that's the sort of program he's running, thinking like, this is the path to enlightenment. And geez, I've really got to be making some serious progress because I've been doing all this stuff. And this respected Buddhist teacher comes in and says, "Nope, you've missed it." So the emperor asks him, I think, what is a very natural question in this situation, in this conundrum, this state of confusion, says, well, what is the highest teaching? What is the teaching of Buddhism? What's it all about then? What is the holy truth of Buddhism? And Bodhidharma responds, vast emptiness, nothing holy. Or just, this is really wordy translation. Emptiness, no holy. Bodhidharma is laying it down like thick and heavy. And it's easy for us to sort of want to belittle the emperor in this situation. What a dummy. But Bodhidharma must be seeing something there, because he's not giving an inch, and he's laying down the absolute raw dharma, the raw teaching, wholesale, chunk, right in front of him. emptiness. Let go of this being an emperor. Let go of the merit you're accomplishing. Let go of all the things that you've done. Let go of patriarch and emperor meeting. Let go of everything that you know, all that you are, all that you've accomplished, and experience emptiness. Our origin, our original home, unconditional love. This is the teaching. This is the fundamental practice and experience of the Bodhidharma. In this space, in this experience, shunyata, emptiness, what is there that is outside of it? What is there that is higher or lower? What is there that is holy or contaminated, impure? Let go of all of it and experience true nature. There's a dedication chant at Choboji that they sing. It says, see if I can remember. It says, I can't remember. This reality has no name, much less a form. It has no form, much less a name. That's what it is. And this is what Bodhidharma is pointing to. This is what our practice points to over and over again. There is a reality prior to heaven and hell. It has no form, much less a name. That's the verse. And this is what our practice points to. This is what Bodhidharma is pointing to. So this is the second portable whole that Bodhidharma lays out, inviting the emperor to step into this world of awakening, this world of emptiness, shunyata. The emperor again kind of misses the boat and says, well, if everything's emptiness, who is this that's standing here before me? Who are you? And this is a great question for all of us to ask when we face another human being, when we face another object, when we face ourselves in the mirror. Who are you? And Bodhidharma responds with the words that we have just on this picture here. It says, don't know, or no knowing. When we enter into the practice of Zazen, when we enter into Zen practice, this thing that we do, this should be stamped on our hearts. No knowing. When we come to the cushion with an agenda, what we want to gain, what we ought to do, what things should be, how we should act, all of these things are knowing. We enter into a box. We enter into the world of subject and object and things. We enter into a world that is fixated, a world of nouns and things that sort of like just bang up against one another. We enter into a world of perception which is not consistent with the activity of the cosmos, which is constantly fluid. So Bodhidharma throws out this third opportunity, this third portable whole, and invites the emperor to step in. enter into this world of don't know. Let go of the ideas of who you are, what you've done, what you've accomplished, good and bad, all of this. Experience the true heart of the Dharma. And just like many times in interview, when we are met with a question, our only response can be this sort of fish-eyed stare where I have no idea what you're talking about. And Bodhidharma sees this look in the emperor and turns away and leaves. Don't worry, I won't talk too much more. If you need to change your posture, go ahead. Yeah. One of the things that we have to accept as practitioners is that all the dancing and shouting and pointing and talking that we do to try to help other people awaken, realize their nature, is kind of wasted energy. All we can do is manifest, demonstrate, point, indicate. Try to create the circumstances in which another person can see for themselves. And then there is this practice of patience. Sometimes just walking away, or sometimes letting the other person walk away, disgruntled, dissatisfied, unhappy. But keeping a warm heart and an open space and allowing that questioning, that investigation to ripen. So I think that's enough for today, but I just wanted to bring us back to the recognition, or to the acknowledgement that this school of Zen that we practice in is not concerned with the solution to insomnia or high blood pressure or more effective sales technique as a result of meditation. These can happen, certainly, and they do happen. Wonderful when they do happen. They feel great. But not to get lost in the surface geography. To recognize that our practice is fundamentally aimed at immersion in our nature, in our origin, remembering the depth of our own heart, finding our home and recognizing that nature not only in ourselves as we arise, but in every stone, in every tree, in every animal, in the clouds, in the sky, recognizing these things not as neat objects in a universe we share, but nothing other than manifestations of this one true nature, not separate, not different, not higher or lower, but this one true nature. Hi.
Thanks for listening to the Living Zen-podcast. If you follow Living Zen through iTunes, I would very much appreciate it if you would take a moment to let me know what you think about it by rating or reviewing the podcast, so that new listeners can also hear what you have to say. Thank you for your time and for your support.